Let's go stateside now, talk to Laurie Laird, US political commentator. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, I must talk about, just very quickly, first of all, about the Chagos Islands, which, I mean, again, no one was paying much attention to, but of course we have this major US base, Diego Garcia, one of the Chagos Islands in the middle of the Pacific. Chagos Islands is going to be handed over to Mauritius by the UK. We understand that Donald Trump's team not happy about this at all, because a big US-American naval base, I mean, really huge American naval base. What would be the reaction, do you think, of the Trump White House if that happens and that's pushed through by Keir Starmer here in the UK before Trump gets into power?
Look, I think Labour is right to be concerned, that America will be concerned about this. This area of the world is probably off Donald Trump's radar screen at the moment. But Diego Garcia, where that U.S. base is located, is a crucial base, very crucial. And many operations the U.S. has blown over the past couple of wars. Sorry, I'm not articulate this morning. Sorry, Julia. But if the theater of operations turns to the Far East, which is where many people think the next conflict will be, that base on Diego Garcia will become ever more important. Now, Marco Rubio, who's Trump's incoming Secretary of State, no reason to think he will not be confirmed, said that back when this deal was done that he thought it was a very poor deal. I think that the UK will come under a lot of pressure to not get this through. We're seeing that Keir Starmer's sending Jonathan Powell over to try and sweet talk, some of the incoming American administration. The other thing to keep in mind, and we're talking about this in military terms, but the Chagossians here in the UK are furious about this deal because they say they were never consulted.
Yeah, no one can understand why it's all come about. It's quite bizarre.
Absolutely.
And it does seem a very silly way of really making Donald Trump very angry. I mean, we've already got David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, over here. He's insulted Donald Trump enough times, but now also saying that he would have no choice but to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, under that the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant, even though Donald Trump has made it really clear that any country that does agree to that arrest warrant will basically face repercussions from the United States. But let's talk about repercussions for Donald Trump's cabinet picks. You mentioned Marco Rubio there, but a number of his cabinet picks have faced bomb and death threats in just a space of 24 hours. Who has this been aimed at, and where do we think they're coming from?
A remarkable story, Julia, and I think even more remarkable is how little information we're getting out of this. The number of cabinet picks that has been targeted seems to be under wraps. I've seen anywhere from 8 to 12, and some of the candidates who have been targeted, these are not household names. I mean, Elise Stefanik, who is the nominee to be ambassador to the United Nations, not a household name in the U.S. Where are these coming from? No clarity whatsoever. Is this an organized thing? Is this lone wolves operating, and are some copycat threats? We know so very little about this, but it's chilling, isn't it? Absolutely chilling. And over the short term, the fact that these people are not well protected, they are only nominees.
Let's talk about the protection level that Donald Trump had as not only an ex-president, but the Republican nominee. I mean, it's just extraordinary that, I mean, the assassination attempt where he did actually, get hit by a bullet, that was able to happen. I still find it extraordinary that anyone involved in that was not instantly sacked on the spot. But this, obviously, I think the FBI and others are perhaps going to rather more efforts to protect people now, having seen what's actually happened and the level of the threat against his team.
And in a philosophical question, Julia, why on earth would you ever get involved in politics? We've seen politicians here complain of trolling, which is completely pernicious and terrible. But in the U.S., these people are targeted by people who own guns, multiple guns. Yeah. It really does dilute the talent that may want to get involved in this business.
Absolutely. And again, we've seen on the other side, the debate, Nancy Pelosi, her husband, almost beaten to death at their Washington home before, some years ago. Let's also talk about immigration. It's a massive big issue here in the UK. We just had our net migration figures, and that's for legal migration. When we talk about illegal migration, off the scale in America, well over 10 million people believed to have crossed the border under the Biden years illegally from Mexico. And we've had these threats from Donald Trump, haven't we, of tariffs on Mexico and indeed the Canadians as well. But he has announced a major breakthrough, Donald Trump, on the border talks. He claims that the new Mexican president has vowed to stop illegal migration into the US effective immediately. What do we know about this?
Well, we know very little because Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, seems to have been in a different conversation with Donald Trump.
Oh dear!
Because after the conversation when Donald Trump tweeted, President Sheinbaum has agreed, effective immediately, to essentially close that border. President Sheinbaum got on X and said, "We had conversation. Don't get me wrong, but we discussed immigration and how to do it in a humane way." And she used some lovely flowery words about immigration being, migration of peoples and countries working together. I'm not sure whether these two people were actually
in the same room. Well, we're into the same territory as Donald Trump claiming that he had a conversation with Vladimir Putin, and that was denied by the Kremlin, and we were like, well, who to believe? But then his own son, Don Jr., has said, there was no direct conversation. I don't know how much of this is being made up. You'd have thought for the Mexican president it was in her interest not to have millions of people trailing through Mexico from South and Central America, and indeed often from as far away, as Vietnam and Pakistan, coming that bizarre route to get into America, to actually have them trailing through her country. You'd think it would be in her interest, and yes, it would also be humane.
Well, look, this is a real big game of chicken, and this may be Donald Trump being a bit of a genius, sort of, announcing some kind of victory before he even gets into office. Because look, if he goes ahead and imposes 25% tariffs on all goods coming in from Mexico and Canada as well, but let's look at Mexico in the first instance. Both countries are going to hurt. This is going to hurt both.
And he argues that he plays hardball, and that's how he gets these deals. But we'll see if that deal does actually exist, won't we? Laurie Laird, US political commentator, thank you so much for joining us.